Hello guys and welcome to another chapter of Changeling. Stifling, I don't know. My throat was dry, the air was heavy, thick with unpleasant smells that clogged my nose and made it hard to breathe. I have to get outside. I couldn't stay in this place. Huh? There was a whisper, right at the edge of my consciousness, leading me forward through the dream, and I had to follow. At some point, the cool wood floor gave way to wet grass and freezing cold. Have to go somewhere. But where? Where was I going? I didn't know. I didn't know that I wasn't alone. When I turned my head, I realized there was a shadowy lump trotting along beside me. What is that? My vision was hazy. Cat? Leave! It took me a moment to realize the raspy voice was my own. The sound of it was so strange that I stopped in my tracks. The cat bounded forward, getting a good few feet ahead of me before stopping. Back arched, fur on end, and spitting in fury, it barred my way. I took a step back as reality crept in. The cat stepped nearer again, almost howling at me. Fur still on end. It took a swipe at my feet, and I took another step back. Claws caught the edge of my pajama pants and raked over my ankle. The sudden pain brought me straight back to reality. Where? Outside again, I looked around warily. I was quite a ways from the house, down near the bridge. Dang it! It was going bad enough that I was roaming around at night at all. But if I kept going out on the road, someone was going to see me. I could not let words of this get back to my parents. Then again, it was probably better than traipsing out in the woods. I pulled my shirt closer to me, for all the good it did against the night air. And that cat? It had settled down and was sitting a few feet away. The white patch on his chest stood out starkly in the moonlight, but the rest blended in the shadows, except the bright yellow eyes. Did you try to stop me? It yawned and stretched, then came toward me. Took a worried step back, but he followed until he was rubbing against my legs, purring. Welcome warmth, though it did little to stave off the cold. Then he was moving again, walking past me, back toward the house. I cast one last glance over my shoulder before following. Stopped after every few steps, looking back to make sure I was behind it. Is this Spencer? You're not a normal cat, are you? I mean, stupid question. What normal cat would wake me up and then escort me home? I vaguely wondered if maybe it was Allie's, like a familiar or something. Witches had those, didn't they? Or maybe it was Shelley's. She was the one preparing some kind of help to keep me from wandering off at night. I guess it's too much to expect you to be able to talk. The cat looked over its shoulder at me, letting out a soft mew. I swear it was scoffing. Well, it's for the best. That would probably be freaky anyway. The cat led me straight up to my front door and sat on the lower step, watching as I stopped with my hand on the handle. Thank you, kitty. The cat stood me out and disappeared over the fence. I watched it for a few seconds but quickly retreated inside when a gust of wind reminded me that pajamas were not meant for lurking outside in mid-autumn. I stopped just inside, shivering in the foyer. Foyer? I don't know. Now that I was back inside, anxiety set in full force. We had to come up with a better way to keep me safe than a weird cat. Even with my animal companions, I'd made it pretty far. I could not keep this up. Hugging myself, I hurried back up to my bedroom and slipped into the welcoming warmth of my bed. I hadn't been gone long enough for the blankets to cool down completely. That was comforting at least. Still needed a better solution though. That was the last thought I had before I finally dozed off again. Ugh, morning. I was tired. So tired. I sat in the kitchen, propping my head on my hand as I leaned against the island. If I didn't, I was going to face plant into my breakfast, or just fall off the bar stool. Maybe both, in an epic display of grace. I was trying to ignore the frustrated conversation filtering in from the family room. Spencer had been rummaging all over the house with Mom, and while I would have loved to help them on their search for the clothes the brownie had stolen, I wasn't usually thrilled at the idea of looking for Spencer's boxers, because apparently the brownie had stolen them, all of them. I might have found it funny this time if I wasn't so tired. I stared down at my nearly empty mug, contemplating a third cup of coffee. Probably not a good idea if I didn't want to spend the rest of the morning jittery before the inevitable crash by lunch, but sleepwalking was really taking its toll. I rubbed my forehead warily, biting back another yawn. It took me a minute to realize Spencer was standing in the doorway watching me, but it didn't have the usual glare. It just looked lost. We stared at each other in silence. I should probably know better than to initiate conversation, but I just hated these awkward silences so much. I hated not even being able to talk to my own brother. Spencer started leaving the kitchen, breakfast forgotten on the table. Hey, Spencer? He stopped and looked back at me but said nothing. Are you okay? He stood silently, two odd socks peeking out from under his pant cuffs, bag still dragging from one hand. Then he dropped his bag by the door and came back to the counter. I raised an eyebrow as he sat on a stool and pulled his breakfast over. Okay, silent breakfast then. That's an improvement, maybe? A silent breakfast was probably better than another argument at any rate. I was just turning back to my coffee when I saw the brownie sneaking up on Spencer's school bag. I left the brownie and he stopped in his tracks. I mouthed the words to it. Don't you dare. The brownie, one foot still held up in the air, gave me a long considering look. I lifted an eyebrow, hoping I looked more menacing than exhausted. The little fairy shrugged and did an impressive pirouette before disappearing down the hall. Stupid fairies. Spencer finished his breakfast before me, shuffling out the kitchen with his bag. I heard the front door open and waited for the bang of its closing. And waited. Frowning, I turned as I heard shuffling footsteps coming back to the kitchen. Cata Shane? Did you want to lift to school today? Again? I frowned, wondering why he was so determined to do this. Maybe some kind of weird desperation? I already set out right with Allie. She's probably on her way. Fine, whatever. He walked out the kitchen as Mom walked in. She stood there, giving me a depressingly maternal look of disapproval. Uh-oh, here we go. Cata Shane. I sighed, bracing myself for inevitable. What? He's trying, honey. I hate seeing the two of you fight like this. I hate how I'm always the bad guy and when he's the one who what? Just then, wasn't he extending an olive branch? I don't know. Cata Shane, just try, please. I know you hate fighting with him. Don't give up on him now that he's finally willing to try. I bit my lip, trying to bite back a retort to that. Why do I always have to be the bigger person? Fine, I'll try. Okay, the thing is, he's offering a ride, but she's deciding to, take a ride with her friend. Not accepting the lifts from his brother doesn't mean that she's not willing to, to make peace with him. Like, the fact that the mother wants to force us to accept the ride is also a red flag for me. Like, you can, they could hang out either at school or after school without, driving together. Like, man, he rubs me the wrong way. This family is a red flag. I grabbed my bag and started out of the kitchen. If he picks a fight with me, you owe me ice cream. Deal. I grinned and left her there. Spencer was at the front door getting his shoes on. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. Wait, I'll come with you if Allie hasn't left yet. Just let me text her. What made you change your mind? Spencer might be acting like he had some pure motives, but I had no such pretenses. Mom promised me ice cream. Figures. Hey, can't blame me for not trusting you. You don't trust me either. He gave me a long look, but he didn't say anything. I expected him to extol me with all the reasons I couldn't be trusted, but he didn't. Maybe he doesn't want to make up. No, I wasn't going to even start trying to convince myself that was true. I knew better. I pulled up my contact screen and sent Ellie a text. Hey, have you left yet? Just about to. Okay, you don't have to stop by. Spencer's taking me to school today. What? Did hell freeze over? Mom badgered me into saying yes. Maybe I should wait in the parking lot in case I have to break up a fight? Thanks for the vote of confidence. I really hoped two of us could at least make it to school without fighting. Then again, our track record wasn't the best. Looks like I'm riding with you. Okay, I'll get the rest of my things. He went back upstairs and I decided to go out the front porch to wait for him. I flopped on the top step and twisted my neck slightly. That brownie needs a solution. Today. Man, this was tough, and not at all fun and exciting. This paranormal stuff definitely needed more robes, cool scarves, and odd guys. Ewan's face flashed in my mind as I thought that. I scowled. Odd guys, they weren't stone-faced giants with an inconsistent sense of humor. The door opened at the moment, and Spencer came out, huffing softly in the cold air as he shut the door behind him. Ready? Sure. We didn't get far before I learned why he was so intent on getting me alone, where there was no referee to threaten to ground us for fighting. I'm sick of my stuff going missing. I rolled my eyes. Great. You totally owe me, Mom. I'm sick of you blaming me for it. There's no one else. Am I supposed to believe Mom or Dad is doing it? Yep, you should have expected this. Mom usually intercepted any argument that happened at home, and we didn't see each other enough at school for him to yell at me there. I didn't know what to tell him. If I had said I didn't know what was going on, he would be a lie. I couldn't tell him it was the household brownie that he'd upset. It nearly backed me into a corner, and I couldn't do anything but play dumb. Maybe you're just doing it just so you can blame me. Give me a break. If I was doing it, what would be the point in asking you about it? How am I supposed to know how your mind works? Is this revenge? You haven't done enough to me already, so you have to make me miserable now too? Isn't that my line? So now I'm the bad guy. You've always have been. You know that's not true. Why did you even ask me to ride with you if you just wanted to shout at me? Spencer slammed on the brakes and the car skidded to a halt. What the hell are you doing? Get out. I stared back at him. He had to be kidding. What? If you're not going to tell the truth, then get out. Are you serious? We're doing this again? Last time you got a month of punishment. Riding by myself is worth a month more. Fine. I grabbed my bag and slapped my way out of the car, feeling sick to my stomach. I hated this. I hated him. I hated myself. He wasn't right, but I was just gaslighting him to protect the club. And I hated that. We didn't even get out of the freaking neighborhood. I was still standing there with the door open when Ewan sped past on his motorcycle. I heard him skid to a stop just behind us and looked over my shoulder to see him walking his bike back to us. He lifted his helmet visor and looked at us curiously. Everything okay? I looked away from him. No, I wasn't. Car trouble? Spencer reluctantly got out and glared at him. The car is fine. Ewan raised an eyebrow. Then why were you both getting out? You were both getting out of the car, right? Neither Spencer nor I spoke. That was probably enough of an answer. I was heading in early for club. Did you want to ride, Shane? I licked my lips nervously, looking between the two of them and trying to decide how to handle this. I could let Spencer win, or I could stand my ground and suffer a tense ride to school to prove a point. Yeah, guess I do. But proving a point just wasn't worth it. I really didn't want to have a shouting match with Spencer all the way to school. Yeah, you know what? I do need a ride. Ewan looked like he hadn't been expecting me to say that, but when I slammed the car door shut and started around the front of the car, he must have realized I was serious. He pulled his helmet off and glowered at Spencer. You're really kicking your little sister out of the car? You're a shitty brother, you know that? Actually, I'm older than him. By several minutes. You did not assume I was younger just because I'm a girl. I'm going to strangle them both. Spencer scoffed. I guess people like you really do stick together. Here we go again. Ewan straightened instantly. What's that supposed to mean? My sister and I aren't the only ones people in school talk about. I've heard about you. And I know you're in that club with her. Oh my god, is Spencer really picking a fight with someone who can probably break him like a twig? And there's some kind of problems with our club? To his credit, Spencer didn't back down. He glared up at Ewan. Yeah, I heard everyone in it is a freak. Ewan's jaw clenched painfully tight. He snapped out his foot, knocking down the kickstand on the bike. Oh shoot. Whoa, hey, okay, you two realize we're blocking the entire freaking road here, right? Ewan paused, at least seeming to sort of rethink a brawl in the middle of the street. Not that it would have been a brawl, more like Spencer getting thrashed, but whatever. And Spencer, weren't you just leaving? Whatever, just stay away from me. He jumped in the car and sped off, kicking up a spray of dirt and wet leaves. Hey, you offered to drive me, you jerk. Not that he could hear me shouting after him. I sighed and turned to look at Ewan. I'm sorry for him. He's just taking his anger out on you. He's literally just suspicious of everything I do these days. Forget it, not like he's wrong anyway. What? Just forget it. I chewed my lip as I watched him get back on his bike and shove his helmet back on. Thanks for stopping, I mean. Don't you usually ride with Allie? How did you know that? I've just seen you ride with her some mornings, that's all. I'd never really seen him in the morning, so I didn't know when he had seen us, but okay. Wasn't going to argue that point. Yeah, well, my mom encouraged me to ride with Spencer today. I strapped a spare helmet on and awkwardly joined him on the bike. She thought he wanted to make up, and instead, he lured you into a trap so he could ditch you again. That is a slight overdramatization of what happened. Given how notoriously bad-tempered he is, I would have expected you to be more careful. Ewan's hands tightened on the handlebars, and he looked back at me. I know you'd said his suspicions of everything you do, but it is safer if he doesn't find out what we are. In all fairness, we haven't exactly ruled out the possibility of him also being a cryptic. Cryptic or not, unless he's really adept at hiding his aura, he's not a Fae. You can tell. Fae auras are unique enough that I can get a basic idea if someone is or not. He has faint traces of Fae magic lingering around him, but considering he lives with you, that's not surprising. He tends to rub off a bit. Huh. Even if he's just slightly sensitive or something, it's not safe for humans to get involved in Fae business. I know that. We're going. Okay. I propped my feet up and wrapped my arms tightly around his waist as he started the bike and revved the motor. Moments later, we were speeding off down the road. At least he felt like speeding. He was a pretty good wind block, but he was still cold. I clung to him and tried to not think too hard about Spencer. This is the second time Ewan came to my rescue in the morning. He always happened along the right moment somehow. I unconsciously tightened my grip around him. He tensed for half a second, then leaned forward, gunning the engine. The moment I pulled, the movement pulled me forward as well, crushing me against his back. My face heated up, but there was no way I was letting go of him at this speed. Pressing against his leather jacket, I was assaulted by the scent of leather, and something else that was sort of earthy and masculine. Oh God, I need to stop going around smelling people. Though I refuse to acknowledge it was my fault guys smell so good sometimes. The ride to school was short, and Ewan was definitely driving fast. We arrived there in no time at all. He rolled into a space and stopped carefully. For a moment, neither of us moved, until I realized I was still clinging to him like a wind-blown lemur. I released him quickly and staggered off the bike, far less grace than I would have liked. Ewan pulled his helmet off and swung it one leg over like a pro while I fumbled to get the helmet off. I wondered how bad my hair looked as I handed it over to him. So, while you were driving, I started wondering, is this going to be one of your typical questions? I have no idea what you mean by... Yes, go ahead. Well, I was just wondering, the head thing. What happens if he comes off while you're riding the bike? Ewan gave me an exasperated look. Do you ever consider that some of these topics might be a little sensitive? Well, it did occur to me, but I'm genuinely curious. I've never met a Dullahan before. You don't have to answer. First, that usually happens at specific times of day or during emotional distress, so I just avoid driving during those times. Usually, if something unexpected happens, I just go back for it. Somehow, the mental image that made me smile a little, that had to be annoying. Have you considered using those bungee strap things to tie it down? I'm considering using one to see if I can strap your mouth shut too. Are you threatening me? Has anyone ever told you that you ask too many questions? No. Yes. He scoffed as he stowed the spare helmet. I guess asking them questions is better than fainting at me. I didn't faint at you. He looked over his shoulder, a small smile on his lips. Well, I'd rather you just ask openly than to try avoid talking about it altogether. Thanks for the ride, really. Eventually, we'll figure out how to get off my bike without nearly falling on your butt. Short legs and heels are a good combo for riding a motorcycle. Then you might want to start at least wearing lower heels. Can't do much about the shortness though. Hey! And wear a warmer jacket next time so you don't have to squeeze the life out of me the whole way here. Hey! My face went hot again as he smirked and started away. I never said I'm riding with you again anyway. Or Shane. I thought you were riding with Spencer. Did you just get here? No. But I said I was going to wait around in case I had to break up a fight, didn't I? Man, you really don't have a lot of faith in us, do you? Well, it's not like you're wrong. Spencer kicked me out of the car before we even left our neighborhood, so I rode with Ewan. He kicked you out of the car? Yup. I really need to have a talk with that boy. Don't, he'll just make it worse. I don't think so. He listens to me. Maybe he used to, but I don't think he's the same Spencer you remember. He's changed a lot in the last few years, and he's getting worse. The secret isn't helping, but it's a secret you have to keep from him too. And I think that would just make it even harder for you to talk to him. I don't get why it's okay for Elliot's family to know he's a vampire, but I have to hide all this. Well, I told you that the rules vary a bit. The fact that you were fake really complicates things. It would be dangerous to just go around blabbing about the fate of people. I get that, but it's frustrating. I know. Come on, let's go in. It's freezing. And the bell was just about to ring anyway. For a change, I was sort of glad to have a partner prone to falling asleep in literature. Elliot nodding off gave me time to just think, or sulk, or whatever. I stared down at my playbook silently. The gap between me and Spencer was growing wider, and there was nothing I could do about it. I hated it. I heard Mrs. Roberts coming up the road behind us and gave Elliot's foot a good stomp. He jolted awake, sitting up straighter. Your line. I tapped his playbook helpfully as he rubbed his eyes. Right. He leaned over and stumbled through the line as Mrs. Roberts passed us. Yo, I'm definitely an Elliot. I can't read. I yawn. Goodness me. Sorry. It's fine. To be honest, I wouldn't mind a nap myself. Tired? You don't have to pretend I don't look it. Well, you are kind of pale, to be honest. Come on. Class is nearly over. We've got this. He shot me a tired smile and we both leaned over to focus on reading until the bell rang. Class passed quickly enough. I barely survived trig. Spencer was back to totally pretending I didn't exist, which was probably for the best. I didn't have the energy to care anymore. I just ignored him as well, and planned to do the same thing during chemistry. Staying awake was the issue at hand. Sleepwalking was physically draining, and dealing with Spencer was emotionally straining. I felt exhausted. During the passing period, I found myself leaning my head against the door to my locker, staring inside vacantly. I was contemplating the risks of sneaking up the club and trying to skip class, mostly for a nap. I only had a few classes under my belt for the day, and already my head was hurting and there was a distinct buzz in my ears. I rubbed my head wishing my ears would stop ringing, but it was only getting worse. The hallway and noise around me faded and the buzz in my head grew even louder. Beneath it, faint, difficult to make out, I thought I could hear words. A soft chant that became clearer and clearer the more I tried to reach for it. It sounded almost like a song or poem. Times I please you, dear mother, learned lessons and to play, and dearly I loved little pale brother, who mother bird have called away. My vision darkened and everything else completely disappeared until the words were ringing loudly in my head. Why did they bring me here to make me not quite bad and not quite good? Why, unless they're wicked, and they're wicked, do they want, in spite, to take me back to their wet, wild wood? I shall grow up, but never grow old. I shall always, always be very cold. I shall never come back again. I jolted awake as someone shook my shoulder. I realized I was still standing in my locker room with someone behind me saying my name. Shane? I tried to shake off the haze as I glanced back at Danny. Did I just fall asleep? Standing up? Because that was definitely a new skill. Shane! I rubbed my face and gave him a tired smile. What? I looked away self-consciously. I'm sorry, you seemed... Danny peered at me again. Are you okay? Yeah, just tired. I haven't been sleeping well. I think I just dozed off while getting my books. Worry creased his brow, and he didn't seem to buy that. Instead, he just watched me looking like he wanted to say something more. You were just whispering to yourself, so I was worried there for a sec. Whispering? What was I whispering? Exactly. Well, it sounded like a poem or something. Your voice just sounded a bit strange. I leaned my back against the locker, frowning. So I'd been saying that poem out loud? Ugh, I need to be more careful. At least Danny had woken me up before I did anything too weird. Sorry I freaked you out. I've been really tired lately, and well, I sleepwalk, so dozing off at my locker probably wasn't a good plan. Sleepwalking? Yeah, it's a long story. You don't have to tell me about it, but I hope you've at least mentioned it to Allie. Yeah, she knows, no worries. How's your research been going? I know you've been reading a lot in the afternoons while you're out. Yeah, I haven't found much to be honest. Varlo's books have a lot of information, but it's not exactly easy to cross-reference things and locate specific information. At least not about fairies. Well, they're a pretty diverse group. I'm sure there's a lot of information to sift through. I'll say. I'm sure you'll find something. I know everyone's been too busy to help you out since you joined the club, but that won't be the case for much longer. I know, Samhain. The agency keeps us pretty busy this time of year, but when it's all over, maybe the lost of us can sit down and help you out with this. I appreciate the gesture, but I'm hoping to have found answers of my own by then. Understandable. He set his hand on my head, giving it a few playful squeezes. I'm sure it will work out okay. Thanks. Come on, we should head to class. I shut my locker, and we walked together for a few minutes before splitting up to each go to our next class. When lunch rolled around, I decided I wasn't ready for more fairy meetings or orchestrated gatherings. I just wanted normal lunch. Getting so wrapped up in all supernatural things was just starting to overwhelm me a bit. I needed a break, and unfortunately, I wasn't sure anyone in the club really understood that. I didn't know if Drayson or the others would be looking for me, so I hid in the school bathroom until the bell rang, then hid in the nearest empty class to read. The club was way more comfortable, but I had a feeling that if I tried to read there, I'd get pulled into the courtyard for lunch, and I just really needed to get away from all that. I slid into a desk and breathed a sigh of relief as I pulled a book out of my backpack. I'd gotten so sidetracked lately, it was hard to keep focused on my research. Especially annoying since my original goal was to try to find answers about why I kept disappearing as a kid, or what might have happened to Spencer. It wasn't like I was just doing some casual research with no purpose. I pulled my journal out of my bag, and for the first time in a few days, I took a few minutes to document everything that had been happening. Keeping a record of everything wasn't just helpful for research, it was also a bit cathartic to write down what I could remember. It helped me look at things from a logical perspective instead of just panicking about it. I paused as I wrote down what happened at my locker earlier. What was that thing I'd been hearing? Something about a pale little brother. I made a note to go through my books that evening and see if I could find it, though I didn't know that it was relevant. It would drive me nuts otherwise. In a way, it almost felt like the sleepwalking episode, just less intense. And it had happened while I was awake. I chewed up my lip, and as I thought about that, maybe it was just because I was already so tired. Or maybe it just meant sleepwalking wasn't really sleepwalking, which was kind of what I've been feeling all along, but I didn't know what else to call it. I didn't know how to research it under any other word. I opened the book in front of me, Encyclopedia of Fairies and Lore, and started reading where I'd been before. Snatches of the poem fitted back to me as I tried to read. Do they want, in spite, to take me back to their wet, wild wood? Take me back to the woods. Fairy abductions. I flipped back toward the beginning of the book to a section I just scanned before. I turned to a new page in my journal and quickly wrote a single word at the top of the page. Changelings. I felt so much better by the time school was over. I was still tired, but the much needed time alone during lunch had really helped me to refocus myself enough to get through the day. I was feeling a bit more like myself when I dropped my books at my locker and quietly shut the door. I was also feeling accomplished after using my study hall and free period to work at Intrigue and chemistry a bit. That way, I wouldn't have to worry so much about class and could focus more on other things. There were only a few minutes left before the final bell, so I figured I would go ahead and go up to the club, avoiding the rush of students at the end of the day. I stretched, thinking about the research I started earlier. I wasn't sure if it was another dead end or not, and I sort of hoped it was. I didn't really want to think about what it would mean if I was a changeling. There were some interesting parallels that warranted looking into. I was so lost in thought that I nearly didn't see Brenna lurking up ahead of me. But when I realized she was standing at the bottom of the stairs as if waiting for someone, I panicked and ducked into another hallway. I really did not want to deal with her at the moment. I went a little way down the side hall and pressed myself to the wall, wondering what she was doing. Hopefully she'd go away if I give her a few minutes. I do understand your situation, but I can't continue to allow you to skip class. My ears pricked up as I heard a muffled voice come from inside the class next to me. Mrs. Roberts? She sounded like she was lecturing someone. Not wanting to overhear, I started to move away until I heard another familiar voice. If you understand, then I don't see why it's a problem. Ewan? I paused curiously. It sounded like he was getting in trouble for skipping so much. Not totally surprising. You can't continue to hide from the world simply because you're Fae. It's not just that. I do understand why my class is particularly difficult for you at the moment, but you're going to fail if you don't start showing up. You don't understand this at all. I gave you the opportunity to supplement your grade by joining the drama club. You think I can get on stage again like this? Up on stage? What? Can always function as a member of the backstage crew instead. Given your history, I don't want that. I don't want to join drama club. I don't want to go to your class, and I don't want to be in the stupid school at all. I realized I was eavesdropping on an obviously private conversation and quickly started away from the door. Definitely had not been meant to hear that. The door behind me flew open and Ewan stormed out just as the bell rang. He rushed past me through the students filing in the walls without even noticing me. I felt a pang of guilt at having overheard that. Biting my lip, I followed after him without giving it much thought. I was fighting against a stream of students heading to the fronts that followed Ewan. Fortunately, he was tall enough that I could easily see where he was. He seemed to be heading for the stairs. Despite that, he just stormed out of the class. He was walking pretty slowly, almost stumbling through the students. Is he okay? I tried to push my way closer to him. Ewan, wait! I didn't catch up to him until he had nearly reached the stairs. Fortunately, there were far few students on this end, only one small pocket of them loitering at the opening of the next hallway over. I grimaced as I noticed Kara and a couple of her friends, but tried to ignore them. They were the least of my worries. Ewan looked like something was wrong with him. Something more than just being upset by an unpleasant conversation. Ewan! He paused and turned back to me. His expression was slightly dazed, like he was half asleep or something. It felt off. Something was definitely wrong. He bent over slightly right as another student barreled out of the nearby hall. The other student's book bag connected with the side of Ewan's skull. Ewan didn't really react, but from my angle, I could see his head tilt at an odd angle, as if he was about to fall. It was a little sickening to see hanging sort of off kilter like that. I froze, eyes wide. There were other students right here. They probably couldn't fully see what was happening from their angle though. I bet that we're going to hug him. Ewan put one hand to the side of his head, but he seemed really out of it, sluggish and weird. A little wisp of green smoke slipped out, and with no one else from the club around, did the first thing that popped into my head. I ran to him, intending to help somehow, because in addition to the head thing, Ewan also looked like he might just pitch forward onto the floor himself. I imagined the freak out he fell on the floor and his head went rolling down the hall. I wasn't really sure how to help because, well, how did you help with that? So I kind of acted on instinct and ran towards him. Ewan, hi! Unsure how else to keep him upright and his head securely on his shoulders, I closed distance between us and threw myself against him. I figured I could sort of brace him up with my body if he fell, which realistically he would definitely just crush me to the ground. In the meantime, I slapped my hands against the sides of his face to hold his head in place. Ewan's head shifted weirdly under my hands as his body dipped forward even more, and before I quite realized what was happening, his face was right in front of me. I used one hand to steady his body and pressed my face to his. Well, my mouth to his. Because a kiss was totally a logical way to solve the situation in a natural and not at all attention-grabbing way. Kiss him and no one will notice how his head is 2 seconds from falling on the floor. Yeah. Logic. I'm good at it. A day might come when I stop reacting to everything like the heroine of a ridiculous story, but today was not that day, apparently. My face was burning as a collective gasp went up from the nearby group of the students. There were a few juvenile oohs and a smattering of applause. For a split second, Ewan didn't react. Then I felt one hand at my waist to steady us both. His other hand covered mine, as if helping to hold his head in place. And time froze for a split second before he released me, apparently having collected himself enough to somewhat function. Our eyes met, and my face went flaming hot. His face was nearly as red as mine. What did I just do? I'm never listening to my instincts again. I dropped my voice to a whisper, trying to ignore how much I wanted to crawl in a locker and die of shame. Fixed? Yeah. He swallowed hard and quickly staggered into the nearest class. Still wasn't really walking well. Whoa, rejected. Lame. I glared at the speaker to find Cata and one of her idiot friends snickering at me. I rolled my eyes and, swallowing every ounce of pride, went after Ewan, despite how I knew it would look. I found him sitting in the empty class with his back to the door, bent over. It looked like he was still supporting his head with his hands, so I figured he must not be fully attached yet. I stepped in and shut the door behind me. Are you okay? Ewan sat there, still silent, as the seconds ticked by. Ewan? What? Are you okay? Do I look okay? What were you thinking? What were you even trying to do? I was trying to... Just go away. I was trying to help you. You didn't look like you were going to be able to do anything in time. You were just standing there. I'd controlled the situation. No, you didn't. You looked like you were barely conscious. I always get a little woozy right before it happens. I didn't need your help. Wait, what? Oh shit, sorry. Okay. What even was that? He looked away, one hand covering his mouth. It was the only thing I could think of to do. Well, it was a stupid idea. How many people just saw that? You played along, so I don't get why you're yelling at me. His face went red again. Who wants to play along with something like that? You, apparently. You know what? I'm out of here. You can sulk alone if you want. I mean, I get that he was weird, but I had been trying to help. I didn't care what his problem was. He didn't get to yell at me like that. Sorry, I tried to help. I stormed out of the class, heading for the club. What a jerk. Yeah, he could be nice. Those mood swings were not something I could put up with. He didn't get to be nice one minute, then bite my head off the next. Not okay. Especially since I'd just been trying to freaking help. I stalked up to the club, flopping onto the sofa, still pissed off. This is why I need to just mind my own damn business from now on. I yanked out my books and journal, not even seeing the words as I flipped through them. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, trying to calm down enough I could focus. I lost my study time in the morning, so I really needed to make progress this afternoon. Setting aside the book in my hand, I went to retrieve a different one from my stash on the bookshelf. Ugh! Someone had relocated them to the top shelf. I stretched up, but I couldn't quite reach them. I was just about ready to scream in frustration when there was a rustle behind me and a leather-clad arm came into view, pulling out the book I'd been after. I whirled around, glaring at Ewan as I snatched the book from him. I don't need your help. I tried to push past Ewan, but he grabbed my arm, and at that moment, I very nearly slapped him across the face. Let go! Ewan let my arm go quickly before looking down at his feet. I'm sorry. What do you want? I just wanted to apologize. I'm sorry for snapping at you. I shouldn't have. I know you were trying to help. I'm not used to that. I usually deal with it alone, and I hate people seeing me like that. I hate it. I hated the idea of you seeing that again. I shouldn't have yelled at you. You didn't deserve it at all. That was just my own frustration at the situation, and I shouldn't have taken it out on you or made it your problem. I made such a show of rescuing you from your brother this morning, and here I am, being just as bad as he is. Worse. I'm such an idiot. Well, I'm not going to argue with that. I crossed my arms over my chest and looked up at him. I'm sorry. I didn't want to bother you. That's all. He turned away, but I rolled my eyes and grabbed his sleeve. Listen, I'm sorry I butted in when maybe I shouldn't have. You just looked like you needed help. I probably should have found a less dramatic way to help. My brain doesn't always come up with the best ideas under pressure. No kidding. He sighed, a hint of red creeping into his face again. You're probably the only person I know who tries something like that. Yeah, it's a gift. I'm really sorry for being angry. Well, you're forgiven, this time. Ewan looked around awkwardly, as if unsure what to do next. Thanks for the book. I mean, it's always nice to have a giant around to get the things on the top shelf. You're not a giant, you're just short. Nope, I am definitely normal sized. He chuckled softly. So, we're okay? Yes, but next time you yell at me, I can't be blamed for kicking you in the shins. I'll remember that. Went back to the sofa, still feeling a little awkward, but glad he came to apologize. Ewan hesitated, then joined me. So, still researching? Yeah, I need to find a way to make friends with the brownie that lives in my house. Oh. Yeah, he hates my brother and is kind of being a brat about it, so do you happen to know how he made it mad? Not really. Fairies are pretty easy to offend, and they're notorious for their bad tempers. Oh really? I never would have noticed that. Every fairy I've ever met has been totally calm and collected the entire time. The brownie, Brenna, you. Very funny. I don't think he's done anything. I mean, we started pranking him the first Monday after we moved in. That was the first time the keys and shoes went missing. So you had to have made it mad in the first few days, and all he did was... The mushrooms! Realization suddenly hit me. Oh, for the love of... What is it? We have a fairy ring in our backyard, and our first day in the house, Spencer was trying to provoke me and kicked some of the mushrooms over. Ewan facepalm. That's probably what did it. Yeah. Great. I'm not much of an expert with brownies, but I can help you look for a specific way to make it forget its little grudge. Really? Consider it my way of making up for being a huge jerk. Okay, let's see what we can find. The awkwardness slowly faded as he helped me look for something useful. He figured leaving gifts out might work, but he wasn't totally sure what would be the best kind, since some gifts actually might make it mad. Still, having someone to help guide me through the research and offer a new perspective was so much nicer than working alone. We worked like that for an entire hour, and by the time it was time to go home, I'd nearly forgotten about our earlier spat entirely. Ewan finally stood and stretched. I was amused at how close he came to touching the ceiling. So, ride home? Sure. Just let me tell Ellie. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to let her know I had arrived. Hey, heading home with Ewan. Is that okay? Yeah, it's fine. I'm going to be late anyway. Wanted to bring Shelly to talk about sleepwalking. No time today. Sorry. It's fine. We'll do it tomorrow? Definitely tomorrow. We'll let you know when. By the way, riding with Ewan again? Shut up. Haha, have fun. I rolled my eyes at her. Jeez, she was such a pain. Where to go? Alright, come on. One freezing, somewhat terrifying ride later, we pulled up in my driveway. Wrestled the helmet off and handed it back to Ewan, my hair gleaming weirdly to my head. I managed to climb off with a semblance of grace this time. Thanks. Again. No problem. See you tomorrow? Ewan hesitated. Are you sure? I gave him a small smile. Yeah. Well, I guess so. I couldn't see his face behind the visor, but he nodded before slowly riding back out into the street. I waited until he was gone before heading inside. Mom was in the kitchen, humming to herself, and for a moment, I thought about going in and telling her what Spencer did that morning, but I was tired of fighting and shouting and bad news. Instead, I just called out to let her know I was home and headed upstairs. I had 2 pages of notes on brownies and one solution to try to appease it, which may or may not work, depending how mad it actually was. I also found a method to basically kick it out of the house completely, which then one would definitely work instantly. I just needed to find the right ingredients. That would solve the problem right away, but I wasn't sure I wanted to. It felt wrong somehow. But my sanity was at stake, and Spencer's life, because I was definitely going to strangle him if he kept being a jerk over the pranks. So, from what they said, like, this thing can be, like, super helpful, right? You can stay. In the end, I was going to try to appease it at first. I could always reserve the whole banishing thing for if making friends didn't work. I was just going to have to find the right moment to do it, because apparently the easiest way to a brownie's heart was through his stomach, but I didn't think I could set out a bowl of milk without Mom noticing. I needed to find an out of the way spot, maybe the basement? I could try to do it after dinner, when everyone else was distracted. Only hope that doing so would finally fix things. If not, I'd have to take stronger measures. I was so over fairies and their weird personalities. I thought about Ewan. Maybe not all fairies. Anyways, I had a mission. For now, I'd focus on that, and I guess I'd find out how well it worked in the morning. Whew. Man, another big chapter. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting this particular visual novel to entertain me so much. Like, I definitely have issues with it. Definitely some dialogue choices, definitely some characters' attitudes, like a lot of red flags and whatnot. But the supernatural element has definitely piqued my interest ever since it was introduced in the, I believe, 3rd chapter. So 3rd episode. If I'm not mixing them up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.